Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. I was literally on my way to the thrift store when I got a YouTube notification that a viewer had requested how to make a racer back tank top out of a polo shirt. And I thought, what a great idea. That could look really cool with the collar, and I always think a racer back is really flattering. I've never done that, so why not give it a try? In the thrift store though, holy smokes, it was actually hard to find a polo shirt that didn't have like an insignia of a workplace. Like I probably looked at 25 different polo shirts before landing on this one, and it's too big for me, but I think it could be really, really cute. Then when I got back home, I looked in my own stash. I found this little t-shirt that literally was my son's t-shirt when he was 12 years old. That I think it looks like I'm wearing a little boy's t-shirt. So I thought maybe I could play around with that, drop the whole thing down by adding fabric in from the sleeve up to the top, and we'll see how that one turns out. Hopefully, I'm gonna end up with two super cute racer back tank tops. So let's get busy. So let's start with this one. Now, normally I would just start in with my scrap of soap and just start drawing where I wanted the neck and the armhole. But because I'm going to be lowering this whole thing down, I think I have to start, first of all, removing the sleeves. Second, I have to open up the shoulder. I can't drop it down too much because the armhole will get to be too low. So I've got a little wiggle room. I could probably drop it a good 1.5 inches. And of course, that will help with the neckline too. Like, I cannot stand necklines that are so high like this. There is actually no side seam, so there's nothing to open up, and I'm not going to cut the side seam. I'll keep that intact, remove the sleeve, open up the shoulder, and then maybe I'll just pin in whatever I can get out of the sleeve here, maybe 4 inches. We'll see what I can get from the sleeve, pin that in, and then I'll do my drawing. That sounds like a good place to start, so let's get going on that one. So with it inside out, then I'm just going to cut off that serged seam. It's just a 3-thread serge. So even if I just cut off the very edge of that serging, then when I grab that needle thread and pull that, then it all just opens up. Easy peasy. Then I have to decide what to do about the neckline. I don't know if I'll be able to stretch it enough to make it work, but I think I might preserve it just in case. So I'm just going to cut off the neckband. And then now I'm going to cut right through the shoulder. The shoulder is bound here, but I'm just going to cut right through that. So here's the front shoulder coming around to the back shoulder. There'll be a gap in between to drop the whole thing down. Right, there's a sharp angle like this on a racer back. So I'll be coming in along like that. So I don't care so much about the shoulder edge, but I do need to complete this neck edge. And then let's just see what fabric I can use from the sleeves. Good. Okay, so that is for here. This goes here. That's the idea. And I think I might just baste those together. So just using a long stitch length to just temporarily sew those edges together. So this amount that I'm adding might be too much, and it might be dropping the armhole down too low. But I'd rather start by adding in too much and then remove some of this shoulder piece if I need to. So I'm just going to sew those 4 points together and then try it on again and show you. I'm switching to a ballpoint needle because I do find that sometimes on a cottony knit like this, the regular universal needles will kind of leave little holes and runs in the fabric. So with a long stitch length, I'm just sewing these 4 little seams. And I'm not even doing back tacks because this is all just temporary. And with those 4 seams just basted, now I can try it on again. Okay, so I've got it on inside out now, but the armhole is definitely too deep. I'm not really comfortable with an armhole that deep. So I shall pick it up a little. I've pulled up both sides, front and back, and repinned those 2 little shoulder bits. And so now I'm quite happy with where it's all sitting. I'm even okay with the neckline as it is, just having dropped it down that bit. So I think that's going to be fine. And then I started to draw my lines for where I want the armhole to be on the front and the back. So the front is pretty good, right through the shoulder, And then of course the back is really hard to draw on yourself. This is definitely a good time to phone a friend. Oh, you never realized that your yoga stretches were good for doing upcycling. And so now I'm getting serious about sewing this. So I'm switching to a zigzag stitch. Only want it to have a width of 1 and a length of 2. So it's very slight zigzag. It's not going to really read as a zigzag, but it will just have a little bit of stretch built into that stitch. Can you see my stitch there? It really does not look like a zigzag, but it has just a small amount of stretch to it. Okay, so now I'll just trim off the excess and serge those 4 seams. Of course, if you don't have a serger, no problem, you'll just zigzag. To be able to cut this symmetrically now, I'm going to kind of push one armhole inside the other like that. Can you see what I've got there? Both armholes together. I'll just make sure the neckline is coming together evenly, and then I'll stick a few pins. And then the back is where it really got sketchy. But by having the one armhole shoved inside the other, that's how I can make sure they are symmetrical. To finish the neck edge, I'm going to use the original neckband that I had cut off. I've unpicked it all of the little raggedy bits are gone. This is going to be able to just stretch right back on. In fact, I could even drop the neck a little bit more and this neckband will still stretch to meet it. I could bring the neck down to about there and this neckband will stretch to there easily, no problem. Now to finish off the armhole edges, I'm going to steal a little bit off the bottom of that polo shirt because I know it's way too long. So I'm going to be cutting strips that are about 1.5 inches wide. I'll also cut a strip for finishing off the armholes on the polo shirt itself. So I'll use that same polo knit for both, but I'm going to do 2 different techniques. The armband will show on this one and it'll bring the armhole in a smidge, not a lot, but a smidge. And then on the polo shirt, I'll use that same type of band to wrap to the inside in a way that it doesn't show. The armband will also help me to ease in the amount that I want to ease in along the armhole toward the bust as well. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm just trimming down that center front neck a little bit. To put the neckband on, I want to quarter mark the t-shirt and the neckband. So to find the center front and center back, I'll put those 2 shoulder pieces together, both of those seams lined up. I'll put a little soap mark at the center front and at the center back. Then bring those 2 marks together and find the halfway point. And then I'll repeat that process on the neckband. So if there's a seam, I like to put the seam at the center back. So this one doesn't have a seam, it's just a continuous loop. Anywhere can be my center back and my center front. Put those 2 marks together for the halfway point. So I think it's good to have the t-shirt inside out for this. The band goes inside, all 3 raw edges together, and then match up the 4 sets of marks. So pin all 4 matching points, and then add maybe just 1 pin in between each of those pins. Good, and to do that, I just need to stretch the band a little bit, catch the middle, stretch and catch the middle. So when I just gently stretch that, everything falls into place, and just make sure that that fullness is distributed evenly. Okay, back to the machine. And again, using that long, skinny zigzag, I have to stretch as I sew. And I'm sewing a little less than at the edge of my presser foot, a little skinnier seam allowance. I also want to make sure that the seams stay the way I pressed them, going toward that little shoulder piece. Okay, so that is all sewn. It's ready to go to the serger or to zigzag your edges. I'll take mine to the serger. So here is my total armhole. 12 inches on the fold, so 24 inches total. And then here are the strips that I cut from the polo shirt, 1.5 inches wide, and those are about 11 on the fold, 22. So this band is 2 inches smaller than the circumference of the armhole, but it will easily stretch to that. So I've got 2 of those. So these 2 I just have to begin by sewing the little seam across both ends. So I'm just joining the little ends. Good. So I'll just take those to the iron and to just press that little seam flat, and then I'll fold the whole thing in half, wrong sides together, and press that in half. I've got the armband quarter marked, same way I did the neckline. I'm going to quarter mark the armhole now, but I'm going to leave that pin in as I quarter mark it so that that ease all stays at the front. There's my seam. It's going to go to that mark. Those 2 match up, no problem. No problem here. The pin has done its job now. This is what I want to ease into this section. So look at that, no problem at all. I just need to give the band the slightest tug, and then that just falls into place. I'm surprised actually. I thought it would take a little bit more convincing, but that just volunteered to go right into place. That just seemed too easy. I won't get overly confident here. I'll sew one armband on, and before I sew on the other or serge, I'm going to try it on again and make sure that the area around the bust line that I'm hoping is eased in is actually eased in. Okay, I just tried it on and it's surprisingly great. That eased in section, which went in so easily, it's perfect. Like I was surprised. So I am excited to finish this one. I could, if I wanted to, get fancy and do a little edge stitch here, even with a double needle, that would be fine. But I'm gonna just keep it simple and call this one done. So I'll give that a final press at the iron. The final press just involves flipping the armband out, getting the seam allowance to lay in toward the shirt, and then pressing that. So there's that nice racer back shape. I think this is really a cute one. I love it. That is so cute, right? That is a cutie. I feel like I should offer to fix your windshields or something. I definitely feel like this is a workplace oriented shirt, but at least there's no logo right here. There is one on the back. I think that'll be fine. It's not anything too obtrusive. So when I'm working with knits, I don't like to put a bust dart on a knit. That's the beauty of a knit, is that it sort of just stretches and molds around the body and you don't generally need darts. I understand that if you're very busty, you might still want to include a bust dart. So if you do want to add a bust dart, then just look at last week's video. I'll link it right here where I did add in a bust dart to a tank top. It wasn't hard. I just don't feel like I need it here because the knit is going to stretch and just smooth over the body. And if there is any gaping in the armhole, I'm going to be able to ease that in when I finish off the edge. I'll just start by drawing the line around the armhole, just by smoothing that fabric over the body and starting to draw. Over the shoulder. I have a cross back bra on, which to me is essential for a racer back t-shirt. This is where it would be super nice if I had a friend that lived close by and knew what I was trying to accomplish here. So if you have a friend, definitely grab her right now. But you know what? I can easily pinch out that red and it's not too tight. That might make my decision for me. I'll just get rid of the red there. I think we'll just try keeping it simple. My next best move is to pop it on inside out. That makes it easier to just pin away what I don't want. And yeah, there's loads of room without that red. For the size, I don't need the red. It just might make an interesting design detail. So that gives me a good start. Let's take this one to the cutting table. Before I took it off, I marked the pins with wax just in case I lost any of them pulling it over my head. And I also drew my armhole lines on the inside just to make life easier for myself. I always like to fold things to cut them symmetrically, so I think I'm going to remove these pins now. Fold the whole thing in half. I think I better just cut each one off separately right beside the piping. Okay, and then up in this area, I think I will just cut through all the layers. I'll have to cut the back more, but this at least gets me started. I'm leaving some seam allowance or wiggle room outside of that line that I drew. And now that it's all open, now I can just bring the two backs together. Just want to come in a little bit further. Now my line is way down here, but I know that the front comes up to there. And my line was pretty terrible because I was drawing on my own back. That looks good. That looks kind of cool already. I kind of like the look of that. So I'll just baste the side seams together and try it on. And then just the same as on the first t-shirt, I'm going to start with a basting stitch, just a long stitch length right down the side seams. Well, that's certainly a lot fresher, isn't it? Now I can just tweak the fit a little bit. So just a little bit more off the sides. Good. And then how's the back? Oh, that's kind of nice. You see this little seam here? I think I might just sort of take that in a bit just to pick up the back, just get rid of a little bit of the gapiness on the back armhole. Yes, right? All right, that little seam is in the front too, so I might as well take a tiny little pinch out of there as well. And again, I think I just will ease in a little bit right there. I still have that red section with the white piping that I could play around with down the side again, but I think that might just bring me back to the feeling that I'm here to fix your windshields. It is kind of a cool design idea. I don't know, what do you think? Should I have done that? I'm probably not gonna do it, but let me know in the comments if you think that I should have done that. On this fabric, I'm going to stick with that ballpoint needle and that long skinny zigzag stitch. And I'm just sewing from pin to pin just to take those sides in a little bit more. That was my original. There's where I just sewed. So I'll just be trimming off the extra and then serging. And now for these 4 little seams where I just wanted to take in a little bit right there. I think that will be a good little trick. I want to get as close to the start of that seam as possible, but it's not possible to get right to the beginning of it because of the collar. That seems fine. Okay. So those seams are the top of the raglan sleeve. And so that's a perfect little place to get a little bit of extra fullness out of the armhole. So now I'll serge the sides and around the whole bottom edge. Good. So now all I need is a little hem and to finish those armhole edges. Sweet. I'm just going to fold up a thumb width along that hem all the way around. I'll stick a few pins in there as I go around. So again, in that long stretched out zigzag stitch, I'm aiming for the top edge of the serger. So for this one, the armband is going to go in very similarly, but with one key difference, and that is that it's not folded. It's just single layer. But I've quarter marked the armhole in the same way with that eased in section over the bust line. And then I'll quarter mark the sleeve band the same. Okay. And again, it's going to go right side together. So the armband is going inside, but now instead of having 3 raw edges together, it'll just be 2 raw edges. Keep all those little seams the way they're pressed. So this is the area around the bust that I'm easing in. You can see all that extra ease there, I hope. But when I stretch the band, it just comes together nicely, and then the band relaxes and brings it all in. I'm going to just sew at the edge of my presser foot. So again, just like the little t-shirt, that ease section just went in no problem. Like I could barely even notice one section was different. So that is a nice little technique. So now the armband is sewn right side together, and this time I want the band to not show. So I'll be serging off an even amount all the way around. Now you might think, why did you cut the band narrower? And I think it's just a little too finicky to work with such a skinny band. And so I think it's easier to start with the 1.5 inches. If you don't have a serger and you can't just neatly trim off as you go, then maybe it is easier to start with an inch wide band. But let me show you what I'll do on the serger. Sergers can sometimes choke if you feed them too much stuff to cut off, but here I'm just cutting one layer of knit, and so the serger is okay with that. So what I want to do is serge my way in, and then I just want to run the left-hand edge of my presser foot along the sewing line. By doing it that way, then I'm going to have the exact same amount all the way around, and it'll be less fussy and finicky than if I had started with a skinnier band. And I think it is nice to have the matching color serger thread, because if this did move away from the body, you will see that serging, and so a matching color is nice. So now the armholes look like that with the armband with just the serged edge. And that's not pretty yet. All we're going to do though is turn that to the inside and stitch it down. I think I'll understitch it first, so I'm pushing the band out over the seam allowance. And this will help me to get a nice edge as I turn it to the inside. I'm making sure the seam allowance is always off to my right and that the band is fully flattened and opened. Yes, what a difference. Now that it's understitched and I go to turn it like that, the difference is like night and day. Before it was sort of soft and mushy and was going to be difficult to get it to roll right on that seam. And now it's easy peasy. It's just beautiful. Do you see how that just like folds exactly on that seam now? Understitching is like a gift from heaven. So now I'm sewing using the 15 line or 5/8 line on my needle plate as my guide. There, can you see the stitching? That came out great. Even through the red part, I was worried that the red might show some wobbles, but it looks pretty good. I'll understitch and top stitch the other armhole just like that. Give it a final press, and then this one is done too, and then I'll show you both. Okay, both tops are done, and I honestly don't know which one I like better. They have totally different vibes. I feel like a lot sportier in this one, and I'm not a particularly sporty person. I love, love, love the back. It's just so fresh and pretty. I hope you were okay with the black on black, and I know it's hard to see, but that's what I wear, and you know that I don't make things just to make a video and then chuck it. Everything I make is for my own wardrobe, for me to personally enjoy, and so I do wear a lot of black. And so I just try to get enough light on there so that you can see what's going on, and I try to always explain what I'm doing. So hopefully that works for you. Both these tops work for me. I'm super happy with both of them. The smiley face graphic one, I think it's a little bit edgier or a little bit funkier, but maybe that's also a little bit more me, but I do love them both. Yeah, I'd say this one is just a little bit more me, a little bit easier to throw on and just feel like myself. But it was really kind of fun for me to sort of achieve the same end goal of the racer back top with two totally different starting spots. This one being the t-shirt of a 12-year-old boy, and the other being a men's 2XL. I hope this opened up some great ideas for you, and I hope you keep on having fun upcycling. And until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.